Larissa here, and I want to talk to you. I know that it seems like I'm talking about a lot of heavy stuff lately, but that's just what life is, right? And I'm not here to try to talk about heavy stuff because the real deal is it's real. So here, if you haven't been aware yet, if you followed me before as Prodigal Pieces, I'm switching things up. I'm going to be switching to Living Real with Larissa. That is something I want to do for a very long time because I felt like the other kind of genre narrowed me so much, and I feel like there's a lot more to me than just that. And so you'll be seeing some changes with just my logo, and really everything's going to stay the same. And it's mostly on the back end of my blog that you'll be seeing some change, or you won't be seeing changes. I'll be making changes. So really nothing much is going to change, just the name. And I just invite you to join up. Sign up for my free email newsletter so that you get posts that come right into your inbox because you can't trust social media, especially after I got hacked and lost over 100,000 followers. All right. Today we're talking about eating. We all love to eat, and hopefully you're blessed enough to be able to eat pretty much whatever you want. And some of you, maybe you're facing pre-diabetic, or maybe you have insulin resistance issues. I wanted to share something with you that I have been learning. I'm always learning. I've talked about this before in my blog about how I learned different things with my children, how to go on elimination diets, how we did the GAPS diet, where we went backwards and figured out what was an issue for each person. And wow, that was mind-blowing, what I've learned there. And so it's just an evolving story of how I'm learning to be the better me, to be healthy. And obviously with different events in my life, I've had a lot of stress. And it wasn't until this separation I was living in here at home, and it was just before all this stuff kind of came crumbling down that I began a health journey for myself. I don't know if you know that I had been thought to be having strokes, and there weren't strokes. It was my body shutting down from stress. Now I know that now. But I went on a health journey to just take care of me. I had been always taking care of everybody else, my 6 kids, and so on, and always worried about everybody else. And I wasn't doing enough for me, even though I thought I was. So I did some adjustments in diet. I started lifting weights because I always knew that we learned in homeschool that you build bone density by applying pressure to those bones. And so us middle-aged women got to think about that when you think about perimenopause and menopause. I mean, at starting at age 35, things start to just kind of shut down. So it's important to just be abreast of what's going on. Get it? All right. So anyway, I had gotten to where I had lost about 15 pounds and about 3.5 inches around my middle. Wasn't looking to focus on the weight as much as the inches and the visceral fat, that fat that just tucks in and around your organs. That bothered me. I knew that I was tucking away like a squirrel in and around my back and my middle, and I still deal with it, so I'm not free of it. I still have some visceral fat that I can feel down there, and I mentioned this in the blog post for life update number 17. But my focus was mainly on just trying not to eat sugar and sticking to my regular routines. I also don't do grains. I mentioned that because I show in different things like potatoes that cause inflammation, and I could see the results in me. So long story short, I had continued on that path, but just kind of felt like I'm missing something. What is up? So during the transition where I was understanding what was going on with my family and then my family of origin, was starting to research more on whether or not how you can become diabetic, because I just kept seeing symptoms in my body. And I can show in the blog post, I was having the chubby face where cortisol was like my food. What they call like beauty marks, or not moles, but they're just marks were showing up on my torso. All these warning signs telling me, even though I'm exercising, even though I'm lifting, I'm trying to eat right, something's still going on. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm high in cortisol, right? Very high. That was the only explanation. And guys, once I started to do even different things to help regulate that, I saw a difference. But what the key was this book here. And I'm not plugging this for the sake of sales or affiliate links. Glucose Goddess. This is a library checkout, not even my book. But I had seen her come up into my feed, right? Jessie is a biochemist who is phenomenal in her research and understanding, can tell her own life story. Not just her, there's other resources that I'm going to plug in at the bottom of my blog posts as I've been doing more and more for you lately. But here she discussed something that just opened my mind up, and it was a key. And it's so simple. You're just going to be like, what? When it came to preparing my foods, I knew, generally what I should be eating, non-processed foods, whole as much as possible. If I can grow it myself, resource it locally. And I was always about that for several decades now. But the key was the order I was eating my foods in. And it just duh. So when I started this, I originally was thinking intermittent fasting. I thought, okay, I've got hormones at play here, and I'm a middle-aged woman. I'm 48 and just turned 48. And I've got something to consider so that I live healthy. I think it's funny that Dr. Marie Claire says it's her stay out of the nursing home workout. Okay, I just don't intend to be there ever. But the idea is I want to age gracefully and healthily best I can. Nobody wants to be put on prescriptions and have hips and knees issues. We can go into that later in another topic because I'm learning something else there. But what I found was when I started, the intermittent fasting is what I learned, but then I just basically narrowed my window of eating from 5 in the morning, 5:30 to 5:30 at night. And I didn't eat after that. I had like a 12-hour fast. That wasn't way out of my scope. The only thing different that I had normally done was I would eat a snack. And the snack could be a half a grapefruit, maybe around 7, 8 o'clock. So I'll cut that out. And during all this stressful time I've been going through, I was having trouble with craving in between snacks. And my snacks were not like some of you would think snacks. I would maybe grab a handful of pecans or peanuts, maybe some dark chocolate. I typically like to have a little something after I eat a meal of an 85% or more cocoa. And that's maybe 2 grams for a little bar, 2 grams of sugar. Anyway, so I was still thinking I'm still not doing something right, but I've always been a fairly energetic person, but just feeling sluggish with everything that I was dealing with. Okay, so what I started to do was cut out the sugars again. And again, we don't eat a lot of sugar here. And if we do have a sweet, it's usually a maple syrup, a local maple syrup or a local honey that has all the enzymes in it. And again, I just thought, okay, I really want to clean the slate here and see what goes on. I think our bodies are like a little chemistry set. We can experiment and see what works for us. Well, when I decided to do this, I had decent muscle mass at the time and was excited that I was continuing. But when I went on this specific diet and reducing calories and so on, I began to lose muscle mass. And I thought, ooh, that's not good. And it was fairly quick. But I realized I was increasing protein, but it wasn't near enough. And there are different takes out there right now about how much protein a female needs to put in her diet, and male is different. And there's another person I'm going to talk about, Dr. Stacy Sims, within my blog post, and how she talks about different workouts, and I'll be talking about her in the future and other people as well. But here I had to really nail about 1 gram of protein for each pound. Okay, so if you weigh 140 pounds, you're going to need 140 grams of protein. And I started really paying attention better than I was. So some of the things, I was already having yogurt, but I went from a plain yogurt, which I don't eat sweetened yogurt, I just eat plain yogurt. I switched to Greek. Greek has way more protein per serving, Greek yogurt, and then does the plain yogurt. I started adding walnuts that have more protein than pecans, and chia seeds, and so on. So I could go into all these nitpicky things, but a book like this is great. Even her site, I have linked here, has some hacks that she calls it, and she says put clothes on your carbs. So not only adding protein, but in the order that I eat. And especially putting my fiber first in my meal. So I've give some examples within my blog post here. I just snapped some pictures of random meals I was having. They're very similar because I took them all within similar amount of time, but I definitely vary it up because I get bored. My taste buds like to be happy too. And boy, did I see a difference when I started to switch that up. And not only did I lose another inch or so around my waist, I'm still not where I would like to be because I I don't want to say feel a jiggle, but you know what I mean. That's a different fat. It's not the subcutaneous that sits on top. It's the visceral. It's tucked in around my organs. And I want to get rid of that. But I think I really got to work on my cortisol in order to really nail that, as much as I'm doing other things to maintain. But anyway, so you would start out your meal with your fiber first, preferably greens, even at breakfast. Whoa, right? That's a mind blower, but it can be made really simple. And I found I really like it and I feel good. And I've been able to have the greens, or even, any kind of green, or carrots or anything with high fiber, start out first. It can seem boring, right? But let's say you don't want to just start out with your greens. The one way you can slowly adapt into this is to dress up those carbs. Let's say you're having a sandwich or a slice of cake, but you wouldn't eat the cake until after your meal and shortly after, not hours later, and you would have, say, yogurt with it, but you'd have the yogurt first. This helps reduce that glucose spike. And if you've ever wanted to get into this, you could get a glucose monitor you attach to your arm, and it gives readouts, and you can study how your body responds, because not everybody's going to be the same. But you can definitely still have the things you like to eat, but the focus would be to eat as clean as possible. But if you're going to eat the stuff, or you're going to do some ingesting of carbs, like you want to go to a pizza party, there's ways to do it. You could have your fiber first, followed by a fat of some kind, avocado even, and then have your pizza, and after that, whatever. The other thing I've continued to do that has always seemed to work really well for me, and I can feel it in my gut, is taking a vinegar water, like a tablespoon of vinegar, but you could take it in water as much as you want, as long as you're downing it about 20 minutes before you ingest your meal, and maybe only one time a day. You could do it before every meal, and sometimes, let's say, oops, I made a mistake. I ate some stuff I shouldn't. You can take that vinegar 20 minutes after whatever you ingested might be high in carbs or sugars, and it will help reduce that glucose spike. I prefer to use apple cider vinegar with a mother culture, but you can use any kind of vinegar. The less sugar, the better. So let's say you have a choice between balsamic or a red wine. I would choose the red wine. The balsamic tends to have more sugars in it. But all these things, these little bits, sounds like a lot, but honestly, once you set yourself up a routine, like for instance, I get up in the morning and you should eat within like 30 minutes of waking, because if you don't, you're going to cause yourself a cortisol spike. Your body's going to be doing the circadian rhythm thing. When you wake up, it's going to want food. And so you should have the cider vinegar, or I should just say the vinegar. You can even have white vinegar before you eat, about 20 minutes before, and then eat something that's savory. So yes, the pancakes and the donuts and stuff, I've honestly never really been a fan of. I'm not really a sweet breakfast person. I prefer the savory. And it's, for me, it tends to be a meat of some kind. I eat eggs and omelets every day. And so you can start off again with a salad or some sort of fiber first, then work to your protein, then your fats. Well, I should say protein and fats can be about in the same pipe, but usually fiber, protein, fats, then your carbohydrates. And that's a great way to just get a good start. And then when it comes to the snacks, hopefully you can see you getting more energy when you control your glucose spikes, that you don't need to be sleepy in the afternoon. I don't know if you feel sleepy after you eat a meal, but it helps with your sleep period when you do regulate your spikes. I have not measured mine. I don't have a glucose monitor, but I have been noticing when I decided to get all this that I was struggling at different points, and I thought, wow, that's telling me I'm off big time. So you listen to your body, and definitely work with a professional if you really want to consider what's going on with you. I'm not a professional in the diet area or understanding insulin and so on, but I've been researching and I'm listening to my body, and I just really want to encourage you. And if you want to see recipes or things like a meal plan or something like that, feel free to reach out to me. That's something I can consider in the future. But I do want to talk about this more. I feel that it's a gem just waiting to be discovered, that, when they plop down a bread basket for you at a restaurant, that's very, very tempting, especially, with the butter. I love butter. But let's say you just say, I'm going to hold off, or ask them to not even bring it, so it's no temptation, and just hold off until you've had a salad or some sort of fiber, and then ingest it with your meal, but towards the end of the meal, right? And that way you're doing yourself a favor. And I think you're going to see, if you have excess weight, that's going to melt off. You're going to feel better. You're going to be happier. You're going to have more energy. And I can attest that even though I thought I was doing good, I still am working on the stress part. It's not so much my diet. You know, your gut health is also a part of this, whether or not you can absorb nutrients and so on. So there's a lot of facets. But the first key for me is to have that vinegar once a day. Slug it down however you want. My kids even do it, and they like doing it. I do recommend, though, when you do take that vinegar, I put mine in about half cup of water and chug it, but I slip it through a straw. You don't want the corrosive acids in your mouth on your teeth. So if you suck through a straw, then rinse out with the water after that. Then you have your breakfast, and you can have a snack. Try to keep your eating window from a 12-hour to 12-hour window. So if you want to eat your breakfast at 7 and you have your dinner by 7, and don't eat or snack after dinner, don't eat past 7 o'clock. Give yourself a fast so that your blood glucose can level out and do some repair work while you're resting. All right, we're here. Living Real with Larissa. I invite your questions. Please leave some comments down below, and don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. And again, thank you for being patient with me as I do some minor changes for you when it comes to this change up of my brand, but excited to have new adventures coming soon. Bye.